up to the podium and take the roll call vote. Should be no problem with that. I don't know if there's any other questions anybody has before we start. Can you hear me all right? Do I need to talk a little louder? That help? We're okay? Good. Remember, the show of hands will be important on votes for us and also on our attendance.
She's still on. She just turned her camera off.
Got it.
There she is.
Good. Roll call, or they just holding their hand up, or they say?
Yep.
They're just holding their hand up?
When you answer roll call, please do voice vote and hand vote so
did.
we can see and hear at the same time. And same way with any voice vote that I take, please say aye and hand up. We do have a few times where I'll come back and ask for a 2/3 vote, as you know, as we've practiced. Everyone, and welcome to this full county board meeting, special by via remote attendance, our third amended agenda. You should all have in front of you. This is March 26th, 2002. This time I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the invocation by Member Barnett.
I originally had scheduled this invocation for our regular scheduled board meeting, which was supposed to be on St. Patrick's Day, but it still seems appropriate. Please join me in prayer. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United States of America and to the
The
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Julie Morlock, our administrative assistant, will call the roll.
George Wendt,
Present.
Lori Woolrath,
Here.
Josh Barnett,
Present.
Jacob Beard,
Present.
Lindsay Bloomfield,
Present.
William Casely,
Present.
Sharon Chung,
Present.
Chuck Erickson,
Present.
William Johnson,
Present. Mr. Martin.
George Gordon,
Present.
Elizabeth Johnston,
Present.
Randall Martin,
Here.
Catherine Metzger,
Present.
Carlo Robustelli,
Present.
Susan Schaefer,
Here.
Logan Smith was going to be absent. James Soldner,
Here.
Gerald Thompson,
Present.
Shayna Wachinski, and then John McIntyre.
Present.
We have 19.
We have 19 members present and 1 absent. We do have a quorum. We'll move on to item 5 on your agenda, appearance by members of the public. We did not have anybody apply to speak tonight, so we'll move on to item 6 on your agenda, which is request approval of a resolution to suspend our rules for the McLean County Board meeting. What say you? A motion by member Johnston. Is there a second? Second by member Woolrat. Are there any comments, discussion, or questions? If none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
The motion
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're kind of on a delayed response, so that works fine. The motion has carried, and we will move on to item 7, which is a report of our county administrator, Ms. Rodriguez. Please join us.
Thank you, Chairman.
You just
It'll be just a moment while our IT department turns the camera towards me. Thank you so much. It's good to see you all this evening. Chairman, I bring forth item 7A1, which is request approval of a resolution amending the remote attendance policy. This can be found on pages 8 through 10 of your packet.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Bloomfield, second by member Gordon. Any comments or discussion? If none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion has carried. I think that was unanimous. There was some delayed response.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. I will move on to the second item that I have to present for action, item 7A2. Request approval of a resolution of the McLean County Board continuing the declaration of an emergency pursuant to Section 11 of the Illinois Emergency Management Act. And that is found on pages 11 through 14 of your packet.
Is there a motion to approve? Member Schaefer, second by member Chung. Comments, questions, or discussion? Member Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ordinarily, under ordinary circumstances, which these aren't, I would not think about amending any of the whereases ahead of a resolution, since the whereases don't have legal force. But I'm a little disturbed with the first whereas, simply because it is not particularly germane to what we are confronting in McLean County. It is of interest historically where the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, first surfaced, but I would move to amend the resolution. I propose to delete the first whereas, simply because it is not germane to our purpose.
Let me clarify, Member Gordon. The first one, a significant outbreak of the coronavirus emerged in China. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is what I'm proposing to delete.
All right.
Simply because it isn't germane.
There is a motion to amend item, as Member Gordon stated. Is there a second? Second by Member Johnston. Are there any comments or questions about it? Discussion? Member Metzger.
Instead of removing the entire whereas, just take out in China. That would, then it would be less significant, and it is taking out what may be perceived as a negative.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Member Gordon, sir?
Mr. Chairman, with the consent of the seconder, I would agree to deleting the phrase in China as a friendly amendment, and therefore leave the rest of it in.
So we'll change that to say coronavirus, corona disease, COVID-19 emerged, period. Okay, is there any other comment about that? If not, all in favor of the amendment to the motion as stated by Member Gordon, please say aye.
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 You opposed? Motion, Member Erickson, is your hand up? Okay, Member Erickson, Member Thompson, Member Bloomfield, and Member Went are voting no. Motion is.
Your free drink, sir.
Okay, the vote then is 14 to 5, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
14 to 5, the amendment has carried. We'll go back to the motion as amended. Is there a motion to approve the resolution as amended? Member Rostelli, is there a second? Member Thompson, comments or questions? Member Rostelli.
I just want to make a quick Scribner error. Just Illinois is not spelled correctly. So that's just, I don't think we need to make any changes, but in the resolution, it's McLean County, Illinois, and it's spelled incorrectly, I believe.
Which line is that, sir?
It's the heading along the top of the resolution. It's resolution continuing the declaration of a disaster in McLean County, Illinois.
All right, thank you. If there's any objection to that, I wouldn't think there would be. Any other comments? Member Thompson. Member Thompson?
Yeah, based on some of the concerns we've had about the overreach of government, local governments, I would just like to highlight for those watching the memo wrote to Chairman McIntyre from our state's attorney, Don Knapp, that highlights what this resolution does not do. And if people have concerns, that they can look that up on our website and be rest assured that this is not an overreaching resolution.
I believe you're referring to the bullet points on page 12.
That is correct. We don't necessarily need to read them, but if people have a concern, they can reference them and get clarity on the issue. Thank you.
Duly noted. Please, any of the viewer audience, if you have that packet, you can look on page 12, and there's an explanation, further explanation by our state's attorney, Mr. Knapp, of exactly what our emergency proclamation allows and does not allow. Thank you very much. I need a motion. I've got a motion. Is all in favor?
Woolrab, sir, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Member Woolrab, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was concerned about the aggregate of exceeding $500,000, and I've got a question concerning that. Is that a total amount, or is that on individual purchases?
I believe it's a total amount.
Regardless which it is actually, that strikes me as a very high number amount, given that, and I certainly understand that we may need to act quickly, and we don't want to certainly wouldn't want to tie our emergency managers or yours or administrators' hands in responding to this urgent situation. But I'm just concerned because one thing, this is a type of disaster that is rolling out seemingly slowly at this point, and with some amount of where you can look in the future and see what we're going to need, and I'm sure everybody's planning for that. And it just seems like a rather high number, given the fact that we can have these meetings and have special meetings when we need to. If we really need to approve anything, that's a very large amount. So can you explain how you came up with that figure? That may help me agree to it. Thank you.
I can tell you what I know personally, in being involved with the meetings, we consulted with our EMA director, and we thought that amount, we kicked around different amounts and ideas on it. We felt like that amount was sufficient to give them the amount of territory that he needed, keeping in mind now that any single purchase over 25,000 would require approval of our administrator, and that we felt that would give plenty of leeway for operations, but we also felt like that was a good stopping point And obviously, if this pandemic continued to increase and got worse, we want to take another look at it and have the whole board be consulted on it. I don't know if that answers your question adequately. I think there could be other numbers on there. Our EMA director felt that that was an adequate amount and was comfortable with that. I will tell you that first thing that as far as EMA goes is they're obviously would like to take in any type of voluntary donations as far as volunteering equipment, et cetera. And then we'll, take it a step at a time, day by day.
So just allow me to clarify, if you will. So anything greater than 25,000, total expenditures greater than 25,000, you and Ms. Rodriguez would have to approve, and then between 25 and 500,000 in total, that would then, once we get to the 500,000, it would start to come to the county board?
If there was any other purchases from 25,000 on that also exceeded that amount, then we want to take a look at it and make sure they don't approve it at that time. So there could be more than one, but the total aggregate would be 500,000. Anyone else? Member Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, I guess, more of a curiosity question, but also related to this, just because I guess I'm not as familiar with the county policy. What is the current spending limit that department heads are allowed to do without going to approval to like the administrator or their direct supervisor?
Offhand, and I would look for any of my staff to correct me, but department heads need to put forth expenditures, I believe, higher than $5,000 inside their approved budget, which is a policy document that you have all already reviewed for approval. And that would even include if it's already inside the budget document. And so there is already in place a significant number of steps that department heads have to take when they want to expend that many dollars. And plus, they would have to come forth with bids or do a procurement process in times aside and apart from a pandemic.
Thank you. I could not remember.
That's okay.
Any other comments? If not, I'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion as amended, please say aye. Looking at show of hands, thank you. Opposed? Motion, I'm sorry, Mr. Martin, was that a vote? Mr. Martin, was that a vote for or against? No, we don't have his voice on.
It seems that Mr. Martin's audio is having a challenge coming through. Perhaps might we, Chairman, ask him for a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Yes, thank you very much. There, Member Martin, can we hear you now? Is that could you remove your hand? That's a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
The motion is carried. We'll move on to item 3 on our agenda.
Thank you, Chairman. I move on to item 7A3. Request approval of an ordinance amending section 108-28, work at home, 108-33, vacation, and 108-34, sick leave of the McLean County Code, found on pages 15 through 17 of your packet.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Member Bloomfield, second by Member Woolrab. Are there comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed? Please vote. Motion has carried.
Chairman, I will move on. I'm moving on to item 7A4, which is request approval of a contract with Tammy Wagoner as a special assistant state's attorney. And you will find information from our state's attorney, Don Knapp, on pages 18 through 23 of your packet.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Casey, second by member Gordon. Comments or questions? Discussion? If none, all in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Opposed? Motion has carried.
Chairman, I'll move on then. I have item 7A5. Request approval of an emergency ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2020 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance for the general fund, state's attorney 0020, and chairman, if I may, and to the membership, I would like to note a Scribner's error within that appropriation document on page 24. I humbly request that we strike the fourth whereas, because we did not have a stand-up justice committee meeting on Tuesday, March 17th, 2020, because of our decision to postpone our full county board meeting, sir.
Thank you. Is there an objection? If not, then we'll let you go on. We'll consider it
Thank you, sir.
recorded. You guys have read it already. Is there a motion to approve? You've already read it, right?
I read it, sir. Thank you.
Motion by member Metzger, second by member Woolrab. Any comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please say aye and signal. Opposed? Motion has carried. This requires a 2/3 vote. Are there any dissenting votes? If not, we'll consider this motion carried unanimously. We'll move on.
Thank you. I have one more item for action, sir. Item 7A6. It is request approval of a memorandum of understanding between the County of McLean and United Way of McLean County on pages 25 and 26 of your packet.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Johnston, second by member Chung. Comments or questions? Member Casey.
Where is this money coming from? I understand that the United Way drive fell far short. I don't understand if this is a stable source of funding.
Understandably, the United Way Fund, although I do not know the final results of the fund, after the drive was finished, they did have enough money to commit and in conjunction for this youth plan.
Correct.
So we'll have a memorandum of understanding that they will come through. Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. And opposed? Motion has carried. You have the floor again.
Thank you. I'm moving on to the portion of the agenda where I'm going to provide a McLean County government COVID-19 update. Thank you, Chairman McIntyre, for this opportunity. I often do not present a full county administrator report, and so I think I'll be making up for all of that tonight. So thank you in advance. I do appreciate the opportunity to address the honorable members of the McLean County Board and the public in this virtual meeting as part of my county administrator report for March of 2020. The last time we convened, which was on March 11th, was for an emergency meeting where you voted out of an abundance of caution for the health and safety of long-term care patients and the public to change 2 polling places which were set to occur in nursing homes for the primary election. At that time, there were no positive COVID-19 cases in McLean County. Since then, county administration and its department heads have been working to address the rapidly changing conditions caused by this novel coronavirus. I want to begin today by thanking all of you who are practicing social distancing and frequent hand washing. If we do not follow these recommendations, we will suffer the consequences. We must be vigilant and follow the recommendations to wash our hands and to stay 6 feet away from each other. We must stay the course, or we will not stop the spread of COVID-19. Today, the Illinois Department of Public Health Director, Dr. Ngozi Ezike, announced, sadly, 673 new cases in one day of COVID-19 in Illinois, bringing the total positive cases in our state to 2,538, 8 of which are in McLean County. And sadly, Dr. Ngozi also announced 7 additional deaths, which brings the total to 26 lives lost in Illinois. 37 total Illinois counties have positive reported cases. These numbers continue to rise, and we beg you, stay inside, and if you must go out for supplies, try to stay 6 feet apart from other people. And please do not convene in groups of 10 people or more. And please wash your hands often. You should follow all the guidance. Please take the shelter-in-place order seriously and stay home if you can. Do not become complacent. McLean County government's preparedness and response planning regarding COVID-19 actually began weeks ago within the Health Department and the Emergency Management Agency, keeping watch on the changing international and national conditions and setting the stage internally to commence their emergency operations centers. Congruently, since about mid-February, the realities of these changing conditions inspired many McLean County citizens to call on the government to address a multitude of COVID-19 related issues. For example, how will people deal with the loss of jobs, which could create access problems to healthcare and nutrition and housing? And while COVID-19 made people rightly so concerned, taxpayer and grant-funded McLean County government services had to continue as usual, including providing service to people living in the adult and juvenile detention centers, caring for the pets at the Animal Control Center, providing children who use Medicaid as their insurance the receipt of dental care and immunizations, maintaining our county highways and roads and bridges, providing citizens with marriage, birth, and death certificates, conducting the primary election, prosecuting crimes and defending the accused, conducting forensic interviews of children alleged to have been abused or neglected, answering 911 calls for McLean County and the town of Normal, responding to 911 calls in McLean County, conducting autopsies for 40, I said it, 40 Illinois counties, and for recreation and enjoyment, offering boating, hiking, and fishing at Kamlara Park. During this pandemic, it has been the county administration's responsibility to convene above and beyond the normal course of business with department directors to address the regulatory and operational issues that ensue during this pandemic, or guide staff in the responses they need to make to regulatory changes. For example, during the week of March 10th, the nursing home took the steps to reduce visitation hours and to conduct health screens on visitors and staff. Soon after, on Saturday morning, March 14th, we received notice from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and that's the regulatory authority that governs long-term care services, that we had to completely restrict visitors. These changes required coordinated communication with the people that live in the nursing home, their families, staff, and the public, including our volunteers. In fact, each leader of McLean County government has had to make difficult decisions to change their policies and procedures for patients, the public, employees, and visitors. McLean County government's preparedness in response to the COVID-19 pandemic varies depending on the department. For example, it is the job of the McLean County Emergency Management Agency, I'll go to call it EMA, to submit every 3 years an emergency operations plan to the Illinois Emergency Management Agency. This plan remains on file and is used only when and if the EMA needs to respond to a disaster and initiate its emergency operations center. Local health departments also maintain emergency personnel in the form of emergency preparedness staff. Outside the pandemic situations like COVID-19, they work diligently to prepare local public health staff to respond to public health emergencies. For example, all local health department staff at the McLean County Health Department must complete federal emergency management agency trainings, preparing for the when and if the health department must, for example, vaccinate the entire community after an anthrax attack or mobilize healthcare supplies after a devastating tornado. Each staff is designated to a point of dispensing unit or a pod, and they are assigned a role and responsibility within that pod. During the time I served as the health department's administrator, I would convene all of those pods in every all-staff meeting. We had emergency preparedness trainings every month. In addition, local public health can mobilize their own public health emergency operations centers, in addition to the EMA's EOC, which essentially organizes local public health department staff into groups with specific duties to address issues, deploy resources, and to convene public information operations unit to push information out to staff, to the public, and to stakeholders like first responders and law enforcement. Also, hospitals initiate incident command and EOC centers in emergency or disaster situations. The COVID-19 situation has changed rapidly, even in the last few days. In addition to the preparations by the health department and EMA, other considerations regarding changes in personnel policies and possible expenditures like we discussed tonight related to emergencies have to be considered. As you know, our personnel policies exist within county code, and therefore county administration must bring action items to the board to make changes to our policy to be agile in these COVID-19 times. In addition, many have asked me why I recommended Chairman McIntyre sign a declaration of disaster last Friday, March 20th. Before signing, I provided the chairman with a summary of facts related to the spread of COVID-19 in McLean County. I told the chairman that as of Monday, March 16th, the Illinois Department of Public Health reported 0 COVID-19 cases in McLean County. And then already by Wednesday, March 18th, Health Department Administrator Jessica McKnight had to conduct a press conference to announce the very first case. And sadly, by Saturday, March 21st, the Illinois Department of Public Health announced McLean County's first death related to COVID-19. My recommendation to the chairman to sign the declaration was based on facts as evidenced in the obvious progression of the disease within our community. I explained that signing the disaster declaration, which was only in effect for 7 days, which is why we're meeting here today, could assist if needed in providing the chairman with a time-limited opportunity to address this pandemic until we could get together today. The actions on Friday, March 20th also included a decision to formally activate the EMA's EOC. Many of you and many staff have asked me, why did EMA not activate the EOC earlier? I was in contact with EMA Director Bob Clark daily, even on Saturdays and Sundays, since early March, to assess when to formally mobilize resources. We examined the daily reports from the Illinois Department of Public Health and from Governor Pritzker's daily press conferences. We assessed our local situation using information provided daily by the health department. We were ready to activate that EOC when the time was right. There is no playbook for this, a pandemic. In the end, we used data to drive our decisions and the timing of those actions. Along with the COVID-19 preparedness and response actions, we are addressing a multitude of discussions, problems, and needed solutions regarding daily operations of county government. County government functions are essential, and our workforce, even in a shelter-in-place order, has adjusted their schedules in an attempt to stagger staff or address a change in flow of the public into our buildings. We changed some of the services at Comlara Park. We closed to the public the government center and instead stood up a customer service walk-up center in the East Street parking lot in Bloomington. Department leadership is navigating all of this while, with some adjustments, remaining open and providing services to McLean County residents. Early into the COVID-19 situation, I joined several federally led conference calls regarding the novel coronavirus, namely with the CDC. And the health department staff have been participating in all of those calls, as well as calls led by the Illinois Department of Public Health. And as other communities, such as in Washington State, were experiencing COVID-related issues in their long-term care facilities, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services also commenced calls, and our staff participate in all of those. Since mid-February and early March, county administration and health department leadership especially have been grappling with these kinds of questions. How much information is enough information for the board, for the public, for staff? And to whom should this information be directed? And who is the first person that should receive it? And how much can we share, especially in light of following HIPAA rules? And who should deliver it? Just today, a local radio station talked about misinformation overload and how to cope. It can be difficult at times with the instant gratification of breaking news and your phone's notifications from Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. It's hard to manage all of that information, and sometimes it's even harder to separate fact from fiction. Our local media, almost 3 weeks ago, March 11th to be exact, wanted to know why county government was not conducting daily press conferences regarding COVID-19. We respect the public's desire to obtain information about all things COVID-19, and yet, at that time, we were fortunate that our community had yet to experience even its first positive case. Our daily messages would have reiterated what the scientists were advising and continue to advise. Wash your hands, distance yourself socially. But by the chairman executing the disaster declaration and EMA's initiation of the EOC and the subsequent activation of the IEMA approved EOP, a plan which I'll remind all board members have had an opportunity, if you so choose, to come in using social distancing and read. We initiated the Joint Information Center, also called a JIC, and that was initiated as part of this process. And a Joint Information Center serves to meet regularly and coordinate all of the various information from the Health Department and EMA and so on. Furthermore, the Health Department now holds virtual press conferences every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Friday. And on Facebook Live, they interact with the public every Tuesday and Thursday. The Health Department's choice to hold press conferences virtually models scientific recommendations to practice social distancing. In addition, the Health Department also uses a daily press release to recap what the Illinois Department of Public Health has confirmed regarding COVID-19 related statistics for McLean County. In these difficult times, it has been wonderful to see the community pull together and respond to needs. We are proud, for example, of Mark Jontry of the Regional Office of Education, who has coordinated local schools to feed students and communicate with families. We at McLean County Government created a COVID-19 resource page on our website. It's also where you can find the health department's updates on the number of cases, or even use it as a place where you can find out what to do if you don't feel well. And McLean County leadership, including the chairman, plan to join the health department's Monday, Wednesday, Friday press conferences to share information about services and operations. To stay connected with us, please join us on those Facebook Live sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And in the coming days, within those Facebook Live sessions, we will encourage the inclusion of additional community leaders to detail their efforts in answering the call to address COVID-19 in our community. And don't forget to watch for our daily press releases from the health department. They usually follow Governor Pritzker's press conferences. We know that so many of you are mobilizing to address the COVID-19 related problems in your parishes, in your social circles, or in your neighborhoods. And we thank you. I'd also like to thank my colleagues, Town of Normal City Manager Pamela Reese and City of Bloomington City Manager Tim Gleason for their leadership during these challenging times. Ms. Reese and Mr. Gleason are also making difficult decisions every day regarding their operations. I'm happy to report that I communicate with them daily. In addition, we cannot forget our rural partners. Our office sends information to the Mayor's Association, and we stay connected with our Economic Development Council Executive Director, Patrick Hoban. And we share information and updates with a newly created site called BN Prepared. I thank you for allowing me to share this update regarding McLean County government's efforts to continue to serve the public during this pandemic. If we all work together and follow the recommendations to shelter in place if we can, and wash our hands and help our neighbors, we can get through this. Thank you, Chairman, for this opportunity, and thank you, McLean County Board members.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Any questions at this time? If not, we'll move on to the agenda. Yes, Mr. Russell.
I just want to compliment you, Ms. Rodriguez, for that really great report. It's nice to have a comprehensive report of all the ways in which you, the staff, and all of the public health professionals and our administration is working so hard to serve the community. I think it should be said that we're very fortunate to have somebody who has spent her whole career in public health, and so it's we get 2 for 1 here. We get a very strong administrator, and we also have someone who has a lot of public health experience and background. One thing I wanted to ask you, if you would, to take some time and talk about is this issue of testing, because it is probably the single biggest thing I'm hearing from constituents, which is I'm hearing from constituents who are ill and unable to get the test but have symptoms. And I wonder if in the plans, as you've been working with state agencies, if there are any plans to expand testing, the drive-through testing and all those kinds of things we're seeing in other parts of the country. Thanks.
Thank you. May I?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you bringing up the issue of testing, and it is something that local health departments throughout Illinois, and I'm sure nationally, are grappling with. As you probably know, and if the public does not know, local health departments do not have testing kits, and testing kits come from a couple of places. They do come from IDPH, and they also come from the FDA. And so at this time, I know that there are efforts to bring testing to certain groups, especially our first responders. I know that Health Department Administrator Jessica McKnight let me know right before we went live today that there is going to be a press release probably tonight or tomorrow coming out to detail efforts from federal level to state and to local that is allowing us to set up a testing site at the fairgrounds here in McLean County. Governor Pritzker talked about it in a couple of his media events in the last couple of days, And I believe, without consulting my email, which details a little bit more about that release, that is going to start on Saturday, 9 a.m. And there are certain qualifications. And so I hope the public and the board allows us the grace to get that just right so that we don't misspeak as to who can come and get tested. But above and beyond that, there are very few ways for us at the local public health level to demand or to ask for or to require the state level public health to give us test kits. And ultimately, I know healthcare providers in hospitals and clinics are frustrated as well because they wish they had more tests, because they probably know that folks are coming to them with symptoms or calling as they should on the phone with symptoms. And because they are not in a high-risk group, the tests are not being administered. So I wish I had better answers for you. I do acknowledge that this is an issue. We are not alone in this issue. And I hope that as I re-review Governor Pritzker's press conference from today, I was trying to work while I watched it. I did hear him speak of some efforts to increase accessibility. I'm just unable to expound fluently on that at this time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Member Wachinski? Member
Okay,
Wachinski?
thank you.
You?
Yes, can you hear me? I have two things. One thing kind of goes off what you were talking about with the testing. Actually, maybe they kind of go together. I don't know. One of the things that I know is similar to what Carlo was talking about is I've had several constituents reach out, or just people in the community who have been told to quarantine themselves because they are presumptive positive, which means they have all the symptoms, they probably have it, so they need to make sure that they're staying home and taking precautions, but they don't qualify for the testing yet. So I reached out to Jessica and asked her if there was any way for us to record those statistics and get that information for how many people are presumptive positive right now. Because while our statistics are only showing there are 8 positive cases, because those are the people who have been tested, there could be potentially hundreds of other people who have been told that they may have it and are to suspect that they have it and conduct themselves in that way. And unfortunately, right now, we don't have a way to track that, and I don't think there will be a way. So I guess I just want to stress to people that just because you're hearing that for the last 3 days, we've only had 8 positive cases, don't relax in your behaviors and what you're doing. But the other thing I had a question about was, do you know if we are in any talks or discussions, or if there's any plans to use local hotels to isolate coronavirus cases, you know, for people who maybe have tested positive but cannot return home because they don't want to make their families sick as well? Maybe their, you know, family member is compromised. I know that's one of the things that JB has talked about, allocating funds for that. And I just wanted to know if we've had any discussion on the county level for that.
I can speak briefly, and if I don't cover it all, I know Chairman McIntyre has been in discussions with Bob Clark, our EMA director, but I do know that IEMA is encouraging us to find those types of sites. You would never want to have, for example, one individual in a family of 10 and 9 people have to go find a place to move themselves to. And so out of common sense, it is important for us to be ready for that type of situation. And I do know that the state has asked us to put together a plan. As I mentioned in the beginning of my update to you, the plan on file that IEMA has, that we put in every 3 years, does not necessarily cover every single topic in a pandemic. There are pieces of that plan, for example, that cover flooding and earthquakes. And yet they do not necessarily specifically cover pandemics. And that's why we're looking for the leadership of the governor's office and IEMA to direct us and require us to provide documentation to find sites like that. I can't confirm if we are going to use a hotel, but we are examining the situation.
Member Johnston.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Thank you to the board, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I also want to commend the staff for all of their hard work, not just in the administrative wing, but across all 24 departments. I know that our employees have been stepping up, and I want to say thank you to all of them as well. My question sort of dovetails a little bit with Shayna's. I'm very grateful for the communication that you're having with the town of Normal and with the city of Bloomington and coming together on plans with them. My question is, and you may not be able to speak to this right now, but my question is are you in communication at all with the two hospitals looking at potential makeshift sites for either triage, treatment, quarantine? And that's why I kind of dovetails with Shayna. So I didn't know if you're actually in communication with these private entities, and that's what thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnston. Yes, county administration and the local public health department, our McLean County Health Department, we are in conversations with the hospitals. We don't drive any of their plans because they have their own incident command centers or emergency operations centers, but we are in regular communication with them. They appreciate the information we provide them, and likewise. And so please be rest assured that there is a line of communication there that exists.
Thank you. Other questions? Member Erickson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just add that if the county were to publish a list of presumptive positives, that it would also include a definition of what a presumptive positive would be. I think that would be prudent if we're going to publish such a list. So I would only add that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good advice. Anyone else?
I thought that Gerald had his hand up.
Gerald, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I would concur with all the thank you to the staff, but also I'd like to throw in you, Chairman McIntyre, for all the work that you've done, countless hours you put in. So you're included in that as well for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
very
Chairman.
much for that great report.
Thank you. Thank you, members.
We will move on now to the consent agenda. What say you? You have the consent agenda in front of you. Motion by Member Johnson, second by Member Thompson. Any comments or questions or discussions, additions or corrections at this time? If none, all in favor, please say aye and signal for me. And opposed? And the motion has carried. There is a transfer ordinance to be found on page 86, which requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor of the transfer ordinance, please say aye. Opposed? Any dissenting votes to be recorded? If none, we'll consider that to pass unanimously. At this time, we'll move on to resolutions that we have in front of us and proclamations. And at this time, Member Bloomfield, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the world wrestling with the COVID-19 pandemic, the health of our neighbors and loved ones is top of mind. And it is with our health in mind that I offer this proclamation. Whereas colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths in the United States, and whereas in early stage colorectal cancer, many patients have no symptoms and are diagnosed through screening. And whereas a screening test is recommended to individuals over age 45 and those with a family history of colorectal cancer. And whereas Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month is an opportunity to offer increased awareness to help inform the public about screening for colorectal cancer, the McLean County Board proclaims March as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month in McLean County, Illinois, adopted this day of March 26, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments? If none, we'll move on to the report of the standing committees. Executive Committee Vice Chairman Solner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Executive Committee has no items for action tonight. We do have a general report that can be found in the unapproved minutes, and I would be glad to answer any other questions.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the report of the Justice Committee. Chairman Gordon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Justice Committee brings one item for action to the board this evening. Item B1A, request to approve an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County Fiscal Year 2020 Combined Annual Appropriation and Budget Ordinance General Fund in the Sheriff's Department 0029, found in our packet on page 101, and I will move that.
Motion by Chairman Gordon. Is there a second? Second by Member Casely. Comments or questions or discussion? If none, all in favor, please signal and say aye. Thank you. Opposed? Motion does carry. This requires a 2/3 vote. Any dissenting votes, please signal. Seeing none, I'll deem this motion carried unanimously, and we'll move on. Sir, you have the floor.
We have no other items for action. Our general report will be found in the unapproved minutes, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chairman Gordon. We'll go on to the report of the Finance Committee. Chairman Solner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance has 5 items today to present for action. First one is C1A, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County Fiscal Year 2020 Combined Annual Appropriation and Budget Ordinance for the County Clerk Elections Department. This requires a 2/3 vote, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Solner. Is there a second? Second by Member Bloomfield. Comments, questions, or discussion? If none, all in favor, please say aye. Signal for me. Thank you. Opposed? This requires a 2/3 vote. Are there any dissenting votes to be recorded? If none, then I will deem this motion carried unanimously. And you can go on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next 3 items I'm going to group together. They are cash flow issues. The first one is request approval of a resolution transferring monies from the Working Cash Fund 002 to the FICA Social Security Fund 0130 and the IMRF Fund 0131 fiscal year 2020. Second item is the same, approving an ordinance transferring monies from the Health Department Fund 0112 to the Persons with Developmental Disabilities Fund 0110 for the fiscal year 2020. Last one then is request approval of an ordinance transferring monies from the County General Fund 001, the Children's Advocacy Center Fund 0129, and Tort Judgment Fund 0135, and the Emergency Telephone System Board Fund 0450 for fiscal year 2020, and I so move that.
So there's a motion by Chairman Solner for items B, C, and D on your agenda. Is there a second? Second by Member Barnett. Is there any objection to entertain these motions together? If none, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The motion has carried.
All right, last item then is C1E, request approval of a collective bargaining agreement by and between the McLean County Board, McLean County Sheriff, and the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council representing McLean County correctional officers, correctional sergeants, and control operators. Just a brief comment. I think we all felt in the Finance Committee that we did really good on this, and I would like to make that motion.
Motion by Chairman Solner. Is there a second? Second by Member Friedrich. Comments or questions or discussion? If none, all in favor, please signal and say aye. Opposed? Objections? Motion is carried.
Our general report can be found in the unapproved minutes. I just have one other thing I would like to comment. Finance Committee will meet on April 1st, which is next week. I assume it's going to be remotely again. I don't want to be melodramatic, but I think members of that committee need to be open-minded. We are going to have to reevaluate revenues, expenditures. I'm not sure whether we have to do that right away, but we know we're going to have a decrease in revenue, and we don't know what's going to happen with expenditures. So I just want people to have their thinking caps on, and we will plan on seeing you on Wednesday. That's all.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the report of the Health Committee. Chair Member Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Health Committee has no items for action this month, and our general report can be found in the unapproved minutes. I do want to make a few comments regarding COVID-19, reiterating some of the things that Ms. Rodriguez mentioned about the Board of Health, the Health Department's press advisory and their Facebook Live feed. The Board of Health has been kept updated on the developments. We have gotten emails from the administrator and our Board of Health President, Carla Pohl. The public, please go to their website. It has a lot of information on it. I also just sent you shortly before the meeting some resources that you may find helpful that I reached out to members of the Behavioral Health Priority Action Team that I'm on, and they gave me some resources that I think that some of us can help with our constituents when they have some questions or concerns and don't really know some answers. And so hope if you have any more questions on that, or if you want some more information, let me know. And also kind of to make a comment about what Shana and Elizabeth were saying on Illinois Department of Human Services has approved several $1 million for emergency lodging for the homeless. And it's going to be going through the local continuums of care organizations, which in McLean County is PATH. And there has not been any details on that yet, but Department of Human Services is looking at addressing the homeless situation also. So more information on that will probably be coming. So, and it might be in Governor Pritzker's address at some point in time in the future. So those are the things that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also add and thank publicly Ms. Stephanie Barish, Director of Youth and Family Services, for reaching out to me and providing other sources of information, some of which have been passed on to you, and others are coming. And thank you, Mrs. Schaefer, for helping me get some of that information out today, as you will be receiving while I was in meetings. Anyway, we are trying very hard to reach out to all of our social and behaviors science people at the same time. And there are sites available. We'll try to get you as much as you can access so you can continue to monitor all that's going on in that area, in the social service providers as well. Let's go into the report of the Land Use and Development Committee. Chairman Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Land Use and Development Committee has no items to be presented for action, and our general report can be found on pages 26 through 29 of the unapproved minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the report of the Transportation Committee. Chairman Casely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no items that are being brought for action. They were all on the consent agenda, and our general report can be found in the unapproved minutes of the committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to the report of the Property Committee. Chairman Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Property Committee brings forward no items for action this month. I do want to highlight one thing. As many of you know, Cobham Laura Park was reopened to the public this past Monday, March 23rd. Hiking and biking trails are open. The boat ramps at Evergreen Lake are open for fishermen and boaters and kayakers. Facilities at the park, such as the campground, the visitor center, any picnic shelter, restrooms, those are all closed through at least April 7th. So if anyone wants to stay up to date about that, I encourage them to visit the Parks and Rec Department section of the county website. But biking, hiking trails, boat ramps are open at Carmlara Park right now. If you do go, please use social distancing and keep use appropriate health and safety measures.
I might add bird watching is there as well.
Bird watching, I did not know that, so thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
The rest of our report may be found in the unapproved minutes packet, and that is all for property, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Barnett. Other business and communication at this time?
Chairman, may I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
May I approach?
Yes, please take the podium.
Chairman, I would like to take this opportunity, as we've all been giving kudos for staff. I want to thank our IT director, Craig Nelson, and all of his staff for all of the work they put into getting us to where we are today, to be able to hold our meeting virtually and practice the social distancing that is required and recommended. And thank you so much for all that you did. We did a lot of practicing. We made a lot of adjustments. We even went out of our comfort zones in some arenas. So thank you, Mr. Nelson, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Member Erickson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank all small business owners and restaurant employees that are making tremendous sacrifices during this spread of the COVID-19. They're making a lot of sacrifices, and I think their sacrifice should be recognized as well. And it's my hope that they will be able to return to their jobs after April 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Schaefer?
To make a comment about Ms. Rodriguez's comment about Mr. Nelson. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. And I think that we will be talking, because the Health Committee is the first committee that meets next month, and we are going to probably be meeting in a different format. So we'll be the ones to be the testers on the committee structure.
Well, I want to thank everyone as well. You've been outstanding, and I appreciate the extra time you've been putting in with us and participating in our practice, our virtual practice, and getting everything up and running. I also want to thank Mr. Nelson for all that he's done. Very, very appreciative, and for you and all your teamwork. Also, Scott Sarver. Scott's on the screen there, I believe, from Broadleaf Video. I'm sorry, for spending extra time and helping us get this all set up and monitoring this as well. I also want to tell you that I have a few extra things that I would like to talk about very briefly. We have an executive policy group that has met this morning and will continue to meet at 8 o'clock every morning, which includes Mr. Rodriguez, Cassie Taylor, our assistant administrator, our state's attorney, Mr. Knapp, our sheriff, Mr. Sandage, Bob Clark, our emergency manager, emergency agency director, myself, Mr. Jontry from the Regional Office of Education, and Ms. Jessica McKnight. We will continue to meet, evaluate what we're doing with EMA. Also, I meet with our director, and have been, Bob Clark, our EMA director, and we'll have more of an up-to-date list as I can share with you in projects, and especially starting with our press conferences, which I believe begin tomorrow at 3, the Health Department.
I believe it's around the 3 o'clock hour. I can send out an announcement.
We will be participating on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. Media will be there and asking us questions as well. If you have suggestions to me as far as other participants that you would like to see, please let me know directly. I appreciate that as well. The sheriff and myself are affiliated with and associated with oversight for our EMA project in our EOC, and we will continue to monitor as well. One more thing, I was in a constant contact, but especially today we had a phone conference with our neighboring counties, county director from Peoria County, Andrew Rand, Tazewell County Chairman David Zimmerman, Woodford County Chairman John Krug. All these gentlemen I have known personally, serving on the LWIA 15 Career Link Board of Directors, and we've exchanged ideas and practices, and I have gotten some good best practices from them, and we are not unlike what they are doing and conducting with their reach out to the public, and we'll continue to keep in contact with them and offer any assistance and vice versa. That's all I have at this time. Member Robustelli, I had your hands up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to expand expand a little bit on what Member Erickson said. I really appreciate what he said, which is our small business community is really taking a big hit, and I would just extend that to the nonprofits and to government and to the workers, the waiters and the gig, the musicians. This is really tough for a lot of people, and so there is a resource that I want to plug. I'm the chair of the board of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we worked with the McLean County Chamber and the Economic Development Council to develop a website for the community, bnprepared.org, and on it actually has a really very easy to use graphic that shows all the restaurants in our community and all the businesses that are able to be opened, what kind of services they're able to provide in terms of curbside delivery, their phone number, and all of that. So I encourage everyone to check that out. And then if there are businesses that are struggling that need support in some way, there's a community resource submission form that they can go in, submit it. They can get information about their employees can get information about unemployment benefits if they've been displaced. So it's, we hope, a resource for the community among many resources, but one that I hope is useful. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Member Baird, do you have your hand up? Sir, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really along the same train of thought as Carlo, earlier today, the jobless report came out with nearly 3.3 million jobless claims. And for so many people in our community, there's been a loss of income. I'm in the financial services sector, and I would just encourage anyone, and please share this with constituents with who you know, that if you know someone or who has suffered a loss of income, be proactive to contact your bank, whether it's a mortgage or a car payment, a credit card bill, your utilities, all of these entities and businesses that you do business with are wanting to work for you. The same goes for tenants. If you be proactive. This is what I'm telling folks, is that don't wait to try to figure it out, but call ahead of time, and your bank is going to work with you. Some of the federal regulation that was passed today is going to directly touch on this, but I would just encourage those folks out there who have suffered a loss of income, contact and talk to people, and don't do this alone. Your neighborhood, your community's here for you.
Thank you, sir. Member Metzger.
I would like to direct this to Member Robustelli. I appreciate the efforts and the work that has been done on the document or that you have discussed. I am hoping that you reached out to our rural communities, because obviously they are suffering even greater because the traffic is significantly less, and they rely on my constituents that are in all these small rural communities. So I hope you reached out and included them in your survey.
Thank you. Yes, Member Johnston.
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to remind everybody, please, if you've got an issue with a constituent, remind them, or however you have social media, remind them that we do have the triage center for mental health services. We've got if you have somebody that's in a mental health crisis, sending them to the ER may not be the best situation, where they're not having physical symptoms, but they're suddenly going to be in proximity to people who are having severe symptoms. So the triage center, as far as we know, is continuing to operate and provide those kind of support services. I know that PATH is overwhelmed with housing issues as well. And so we want to be able to rely on that triage center for those mental health services. So please continue to push that out, let people know, because it is such a new resource. I'm not sure it's really gained enough traction. So make sure you encourage people to use that as needed and help stop the spread as well. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone in the public that 211 is a number that you can call for PATH for help as well, if you have any questions. I would be remiss if we didn't pay bills here. So I have before me bills that have been approved by the auditor to pay in the amount of $3,129,106.46. Is there a motion to approve the bills? Member Solner, second by Member Wachinski. Comments or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion has carried. I want to tell all of you, I will continue to endeavor to help try to be a communication specialist and pass on information the best I can to help our administrative staff here while they're dealing with many other issues. I appreciate your direct input. You've been an outstanding team, very positive. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you again. And I'm looking forward to us conducting business as usual this coming month, however virtual it is. You are a great group. I know you all will step forward and help others in the community and your constituents. My prayers are for all of you to stay well. This meeting is adjourned.